This tutorial is for Ripple Whips. In this case, we're focused on the custom framing theme of the Ripple Whips transitions. And these all work pretty much the same way, so I'm going to use one as an example. The key about the custom framing is it gives you a lot of flexibility to determine exactly how this transition unfolds. The thing to know about these is they really depend on having content that matches well, as opposed to zooms and pans where you can combine very different content. Custom framing works best with something that matches well. Here's what I mean. I have this shot here of this horse-drawn carriage in the jungles of Belize with a nice blue puffy sky, and this next shot of these girls jumping into the water, and it also has a nice blue puffy sky, puffy cloud sky. And I'm going to take advantage of the fact that the skies are very similar in order to make this work. So I'm going to use this first one, which I think is the most useful of all of them actually, flip match sky. So I'll drop it on and play. And without making any changes, we've got a pretty darn effective transition because I chose shots that match pretty well. If I put my playhead in the middle of this, we can see that they're blending together well. Part of the reason they're blending together well is I've done a little bit of color correction on each of these clips in order to make the skies match a little bit better. You can see I'm turning on and off the color correction on the second clip. So some color correction can really help you make these things match better. Now let's select the transition and look in the transition inspector. So at the top is the setup and action menu, and it's set to action by default, which is what you see when you play. However, you can go in here and choose adjust framing. This gives you a two-up view of both clips, and you can see how they're oriented to each other, and the camera moves from one to the next. This is stacked upside down on top of the first clip, A and B. So it matches the thumbnail here, A and B, with B being upside down. You have complete control over the framing of each of the camera moves. There's actually three camera moves. There's the first move where the camera pushes in, and let's say we want it to come down and focus a little bit more on this buggy here, this carriage, horse-drawn carriage. And then after it pushes in, it flips upside down, and then it goes into this technically third move. It's really the second kind of push move, and I'll have it frame the girls a little bit better about there. You can also rotate these. I'm going to undo that. I usually don't really need to rotate them, but it can be fun to do so. And then you can adjust the scale of each of these in the inspector. So we see first move position. So you can also adjust that in the inspector rather than dragging on the on-screen control. And the first move scale, you can scale that up or down. Maybe I want to push in a little bit closer before going to my move. Same thing with the second position and scale. You have those available here. And then you can adjust the clip and the mask. To do that, go back up to the top and choose Move, Clip, and Mask. That gives you on-screen controls that adjust where this mask overlaps the two clips. And you can adjust that if you're getting a little bit of a line there. And you can even move this clip around. You can have them overlap each other more or in a different place. I usually keep them pretty close to right on top of each other, but sometimes you want to bring them down to overlap each other more. The other key parameter here is this mask feather amount that can help cover a seam by increasing it. If you increase it a lot, you start to reveal the next clip, but then you can just overlap these more to make that disappear. I'm going to pull back on that feather a little bit. So that's a key parameter, the mask feather. And then you have additional parameters for the camera movement. If you don't have any clouds in the shot, you can add clouds to the shot. That'll add some clouds in there. I'm going to turn that off. And you've got some options to add a fade between them and a blur between them and even a flash to white. Generally, I stick with the controls we've looked at so far, but all those can come in handy. So with those things done, I'll move back to the action pop up in the menu, and we can play through that. So quick and easy when you've got good material that works well together. Here's another example of two shots. So I have a shot of this water, and then I have another shot of the water, a very different angle. This is a still shot. So this is a pan that reveals the water cascading down this waterfall. And then here's another shot from another angle. And I've used another one of these transitions. This actually is another one that matches the sky, but notice I've put the second one on an angle and changed the framing. And the result, if I go back to the action menu, is that we pan over, we push into the water, and then we do the spin, and you really don't see that seam at all because we've got all that water action going on. So this works great on shots where they're in the same environment, and you can use some objects like water or clouds or grass to hide that transition from one shot to the next. For these two clips, I have this turtle underwater, and then we have a clip of the San Francisco skyline, and the blue matches pretty well between the two, the blue of the sky here and the blue here. So if I were to put this on top of this clip and just pan straight down, so no flipping. So in this case, I would look at push down. So let's put that on here because we're going to push down from one to the next. And the push refers to the fact that the camera pushes in first before moving down. So let's play that. And it can be quite effective, especially if it's pretty fast. So it pushes in and pans down. Because this template is part of the custom framing category, it has all of our parameters here. So we can go to adjust framing and adjust exactly how each of these frames look as they move into position. And we can also scale them and rotate them and do what else we want. We have full control over exactly how the transition unfolds, as well as the overlap between them. And we could even add some additional color correction to make that match a little bit more. I'll go back to action and play that through. Now, in this category, we also have a push left and a push right. And I'll throw one of those on. Left and right work pretty much the same, but you'll notice there's a very obvious transition between the two by default. If you have clips that match each other well, you might be able to do exactly what we did with the clouds or with the water in these last couple of examples. But if you have clips that don't match really well, either you could go back up and use one of these whip left and whip right options, or if you want to take advantage of all these controls, you can use this one because if you scroll down, there's a blur checkbox. And if I turn that on, it creates a very significant blur. And you can then play that. It'll push in, blur, and move to the other one. So it just gives you a different type of blur than the whip left and whip right that are also available.